fastest show in sports.
Oh, these are bad times in Cleveland. But then again, when you think about it, when it comes down to the National Football League and the Browns, when has there been a good time in Cleveland? Honestly, if you're going to talk about a city that has really undergone the dregs of the NFL and really deserves maybe to get some break every now and then, it's got to be a team like the Cleveland Browns. You can mention the Cincinnati Bengals, and a lot of people will mention the Jets. But the Browns, supposedly, they've been trying for the last 10 years or so. But what happens when you look at a team like this that loses to the New York Jets? The Jets? Oh my goodness. I mean, if the shit's going to hit the fan, this is where it's all going to start.
It's been rubbing me the wrong way here over the last couple of weeks where I got a general manager who used to talk every single bye week. Now he doesn't want to talk. And I cannot tell you how much it bothers me because I don't think that's being a good team player. I don't think you're putting people in the right position. So Kevin has to go out there and answer questions. And yesterday or Sunday was an abomination. And that's partly Andrew Berry's fault because he's the one who picks the players. And a lot of that's Kevin Stefanski's fault and his staff's fault for what happened on Sunday. I mean, Bubba Ventrone and that special teams, there's no argument for Bubba Ventrone. That is absolutely 100% unacceptable. And people want to say, well, they got to send a message. It's not just about sending a message. It's about holding accountable. You've gone half a season. Your special teams have been crap, save for Grant Delpit. You went through a bye week. You come off a bye week. You got 2 weeks to prepare for opponents, and you give up a punt return touchdown and a kickoff return touchdown, opposite directions, in 36 seconds. Within 36 seconds. On an offense that can't score. See, that's the thing. You have an offense that can't score. So you must play the most complimentary football that you possibly could play.
I don't know about you, but I love the word abomination. The guys at 92.3 in Cleveland, they're apoplectic, and so is the rest of the city. When you lose to the New York Jets, that's what happens, and they've got a reason to get all upset. And that's why a lot of people this week are now saying, fire Kevin Stefanski, the head coach. Do we really have to go through this? Kevin Stefanski is not going to be fired. It's not going to be happen. I want you to write it down, put it in indelible ink, write it on the inside of your eyelids, if you will. He is not going to be fired. There's too many other problems with this team, especially with personnel, a lot of things that he simply is not in charge of. Yes, he can do what he can with what he has, but he hasn't got much. People have been promised for years that the Browns were going to get better, and they're really not. I mean, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, what can you point to and say that things are actually better here? Right now, there's not much. Stefanski is not going to be fired. Now, I do want to address as well this thinking process that the general manager needs to tell them what's going on. No, he doesn't. GMs and coaches, and this is another thing that's going on in Cleveland right now. People are bitching and moaning that Stefanski doesn't really answer the questions. He doesn't tell us what's going on in those post-game press conferences. He basically hems and haws and doesn't give us real answers. What are you children, babies? This is what happens in professional sports. This is what happens when you deal with experienced coaches. They don't tell you shit. That's their job, okay? Understand this, first of all, and then we'll get to everything else, but let's address this while we're here. The job of a head coach at any franchise, at any level, is to not tell you anything, especially if you're a member of the press. Tell you absolutely nothing. And the teams that are always successful are the ones where the players don't tell you anything either, because they've been schooled. Don't put up anything that can be bulletin board material. Don't do anything that'll piss off another team. Don't do anything that'll start a controversy. Don't say anything. Zip it. And that's what they do. So it doesn't make a difference if it's the general manager or the head coach. You're not going to hear anything. You're not going to glean anything that's going to be, ooh, we got him here. No, that's what we do in this business. We opine. We take things we see, and hopefully we use a little of our intelligence, and we can try and decide what's going on. That's what happens. So don't expect Stefanski to stand up at his press conference, sit down at his press conference and say, you know, we really sucked the joint up today, as a matter of fact, and I think at least 15 of those guys should be cut immediately, because I don't know if I'd want them on my Sega football team, much less having them on my real roster. I mean, we were abhorrently bad today. We stink. We're terrible. Matter of fact, I tell you what, why don't you guys go back into the other room right now, talk to the GM, and tell him he needs to fire me right away, because I'm not doing the job. Let's fire everybody and get him out of here. It'd be great if that's what happened, but it's not going to happen. And the Cleveland Browns are going to continue to suck this season because they haven't made the right moves. Which brings us to the thing that everybody is talking about in Cleveland and has been since the beginning of the season. There continues to be this thinking process that Kevin Stefanski is purposely and with malice holding out Shedeur Sanders from getting his snaps. There's been a lot of discussion from all these so-called NFL experts, whether they're in studios, whether they're in offices, whether they're in the stands, whatever, that Shedeur Sanders has earned the right to be the next quarterback. He has earned the right to be the starting quarterback. Apparently, in the thinking process of Kevin Stefanski and the coaches, no, he hasn't. I mean, therein lies the rub, because we have got a number of really mealy-mouthed minion idiots out there who are trying to shovel a racist statement with regard to Shedeur Sanders. There are so many of them, and I'm not going to, really, I could name them off. I could start counting them off. And a lot of them are former pro football players who have their own podcasts and their own shows, and they mouth off at just about everything. They go off because all they do is something that's guaranteed to be clickbait. They're intimating that this is a racist issue, that Stefanski's doing this because Shedeur Sanders is black. Guess what? These people are absolutely, positively, without question, the band of knuckleheads you want to get away from so that hopefully you don't catch whatever it is that they may be spreading. Coaches don't... Using the racism card in football, most of the players are black. If Kevin Stefanski was a racist, and if there was a real problem on that franchise, don't you think that it would have affected the other players in there? Don't you think that somebody would have spoken up by now? Of course they would have. And separate the line of players with front office. I get all of the discussion about what's going on in front offices and the fact that there is a ceiling there that a lot of people are stopped from attaining. I get that. This comes down from the coach down to the players. Stefanski's not a racist. There's no proof of this whatsoever. There's not even any inkling of it. But there are people out there, like these idiots and these former players, who will swear that Shedeur Sanders is being kept down because he's black. Hey, think about this for a second. Shedeur's not that good. Did you ever think about that? I mean, is there a reason why he dropped? Did he just drop? Look, and here's the problem that comes down with all this. If Shedeur Sanders was that good a player, where he had the wherewithal and the possibility to take a franchise with his arm, with his legs, with his head, and create a winning franchise and be a franchise quarterback and be the type of a player that could lead a coach, assistant coaches, a franchise, and fellow players to contend for a playoff berth, maybe even for a championship one day. If he was the guy who could do that, it wouldn't make a difference if he was purple. Because the idea, the concept here is winning, making money, and getting to that championship. Do these idiots, these knuckleheads, these morons actually think that a head coach would sit back and say, I don't want him in the league, he's black. I don't want him leading our team right now because we're not going to win with him now. As a matter of fact, I just don't like him because of his race, that's all. And I don't like him because of whatever reason you want to go ahead and put up there. We just won't win. What are you, stupid? I mean, this doesn't happen. This is the National Football League in the year 2025, where it's all about money, making money, getting to the playoffs, and winning. So if Shedeur Sanders was the guy that had the opportunity that coaches, personnel, managers saw was the person that could lead them to the promised land, he'd be the starting quarterback. Now, the next question is Dillon Gabriel the guy who's going to do that? Well, obviously, the coaches have decided that when it comes down to what they're trying to achieve, that Gabriel is the kind of player that they want. And look, you can hammer away at Dillon Gabriel all you want, but he's got no offensive line in front of him. He's got no help whatsoever. The kid's getting hammered. I'm going to be lucky if he gets out of this season without 197 concussions and is basically walking around with a cane. I mean, that's how bad this offensive line is. But he's got to go through it, and they believe that he's the one that is going to lead them. So that's why he's there. This has nothing to do with race. Nothing. Zero. Mark it down. I have no problem if you write it down and quote that back to me down the road. This has to do with the fact that Shedeur Sanders is not the player that they need right now. Mary Kay Cabot is one of the best reporters covering the National Football League. Cleveland Plain Dealer, Cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I've had her as a guest on my shows many times over the years. She's brilliant. There's very few people that know the NFL better than she does. And when it comes down to the topic of Shedeur Sanders, Mary Kay Cabot puts it in the best perspective.
I think there is plenty of time to see what Shedeur Sanders can do. There are still 8 games left. Why would you give your 3rd round pick only 5 starts and you're going to give your 5th round pick 8 starts? Does that make any kind of sense? No. Just because people are going by what they remember seeing Shedeur do in college, they see the excitement, they see some things about him. He's got the name, he's got the star power, he's got the pizzazz, but it just doesn't make sense that you would only give your 3rd round pick 5 starts and then give Shedeur Sanders this long runway with 8 starts. A rookie quarterback needs to develop. It requires some patience. It requires some time, some seasoning, and it does require a good supporting cast and a good performance out of your supporting cast.
See, there it is, the supporting cast. He doesn't have it. And by the way, when it comes down to Shedeur Sanders, people are always going back to saying, didn't you see what this kid did in college? Oh, stop. Really? And I'm going to ask the question again. Are you that stupid? Do you think that everything that happens in college immediately transfers to the National Football League? Which, of course, it doesn't, because by the time you get to the NFL, that's a game that's at least 5 times faster than anything in college and a whole hell of a lot more physical. It needs a whole lot more work to succeed there than it does in college. And when you go back to college with Shedeur Sanders, look, this is not a hammer against him. But his dad took the job at Colorado so he could get his sons into the National Football League. It's the only reason he took the job. He saw an easy route for his kids to go to a school that really wasn't very well thought of in the first place, that was playing a bit of a patty cake schedule, that really wasn't expected to do much. He went to the transfer portal. He brought in every single hired gun that he could find to make this team better for the season. And he did. And guess what? Deion did exactly what he wanted to do. He got his kids picked in the National Football League. One, of course, has already played his way out, and one is waiting for his opportunity. But that's simply the way it goes between college football and pro football. This was a setup. Shedeur is a very talented kid. And I got to be honest with you. When I first heard this story and when I was thinking about reporting on it and talking about it here, there is a part of me that started to ask, I wonder what's going on there. Because it's not it's not as if he's a lump. I mean, he's got talent. So why isn't he getting the reps? Got to be a reason. Maybe he's not absorbing the playbook well. Maybe he's not the kind of quarterback that they need. Maybe Dillon Gabriel is. Maybe there's some kind of plan here. Maybe Kevin Stefanski's not as stupid as some of the morons on social media tend to think he is when all they can do is insult the guy. Maybe there's a plan. Now, plan's not working. I get it. But it's not working for a lot of reasons, and it's not just the quarterback. So this nonsense about Shedeur Sanders has got to stop once and for all. This is not a racial issue. He is not being held down by the man because he's a black quarterback. Are you serious? There are outstanding, incredibly talented, awesome black quarterbacks playing in the National Football League right now. So it's not as if all of a sudden one head coach decided that I'm going to be a racist and I'm going to make sure that this guy doesn't play. Bullshit. That's not the way it works. Shedeur Sanders may get his chance yet. Shedeur Sanders may wind up someplace else. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of talk that he may be traded after this season. And he might. Who knows what's going to happen? The way the Browns are playing right now, they might have another top draft pick and they may go after a quarterback again. But they've decided to make their mark with Gabriel right now. So stop with the nonsense about Sanders. If he's willing, if he's worth it, he'll get the opportunity. And it might not be in Cleveland. Hell, look, Browns fans are not going to be happy about this, but maybe the best thing for Shedeur Sanders right now is to stay the 3rd, 4th, 5th string quarterback and then get out of there. go someplace where he can actually get a chance. Maybe there's somebody else who looks at this kid and says, he's going to be our starting quarterback. It'd be the best thing for him. It'd be the best thing for the Browns, maybe. We don't know what's going to happen next season. But these conspiracy theories are just what people get into when they're not smart enough to see the truth, not smart enough to understand the facts, and not smart enough to think about what may happen down the road and what plans are for other players and for other teams. Look, I'm not a fan of the Cleveland Browns, but I do think that fan base deserves a break. They deserve to get some winners there, for crying out loud. I mean, it's bad enough they got pitchers on their baseball team throwing games right now and setting it up for bettors. They deserve something. They're not going to get it this year. It's not going to come at the arm of Shedeur Sanders. Kevin Stefanski is not a stupid guy, and maybe things will work out for next season. But in Cleveland, they got to be awfully damn tired of thinking about next season.
Ed Berliner, the fastest show in sports.